Hey everybody, it's the Red Zone. It's Thursday, and we're again another week of smashing podcasts together. Leadership ideas coming together from different parts of the United States, whether it be from Maine to Florida, whether it be from Alaska to Hawaii, and Canada, and all the way in between. So this is truly an international event today. So thank you for joining us. Josh Bawad, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland, USA, here in Austin. TSSP, anybody out there? Reach out. But we're here reaching out as a collective. We've got South Carolina in the house. We've got Kevin in the car here in Texas. We've got Brad in Canada. And we've got the man of the hour. We've got Dean up there in the New England area. Dean, what do you think? Are we ready for the red zone and another touchdown?
Thursday nights are always great, Josh, and you kick us off with style, as you always do. And listen, it's so great to have representation from around the country here tonight, because we're all in this game for the same reason: is to make ourselves better and the people around us better as well. So again, my name is Dean Packard. I am the principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts, and one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. Chris Starcheski is off again tonight. He is going to be back soon. I know he is. I know if he's listening out there, he's going to tune in. But nonetheless, we are here tonight just to bring people together and really have some conversation about leadership. So it's great to see all of you guys. I'd like to go around the room here. We've got some familiar faces for sure. They've been on before. And then we're just going to have everybody introduce themselves. And we're going to get right down to some good talk. How about that, Josh? Josh, you're great. I can't read your lips, man. You went mute.
I did it 2 times in a month. Oh, my God.
You did.
Let's start off with our guest, our international guest. A great podcaster. If you do not follow him and listen to his podcast, please do. That guy right there. Bottom corner, Brad is one of the best, liveliest, positive human being I've ever met in my life. He motivates me, inspires me. And 6 a.m. during school time, I log in and I listen to him. Brad, talk to us. How you doing?
Josh, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be with you tonight in the Red Zone, unlocking the middle with some fantastic educators. My name is Brad Hughes. I'm the proud principal of Alpine Public School in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Waterloo Region District School Board, representing wonderful opportunities to connect with all of you. And I'm also the host of the Good News, Brad News podcast. I'm a training and development specialist with Teach Better Team. I'm also a blogger, and I'm a chief encouragement officer in my space, Josh. And like you, encouragement and serving those that serve kids, that's my passion. So great to be with all of you tonight.
Awesome, Brad. Thank you for being here. We'll wait right now when Kevin goes in park right now. But you know what? Create and educate. We've got Sheka. We've got Tammy here in the house, South Carolina. Gamecocks, Clemson, Tigers in the house. Ladies, welcome to the Red Zone. Talk to us. Tell us, everybody, about yourself.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Dean, for having us. I'm Sheka Houston. I'm in South Carolina, as Josh stated. I'm the Director of Secondary Interventions in Chester County School District. I'm also the co-founder of Create and Educate and the co-host of the Collaborative and the Real Academy.
It's great to have you back. Tammy's up.
Yes. Hi, guys. And thank you. As Sheka said, we are so elated to be with you all this evening. And I, of course, will be the second half of that, co-founding of those things that she mentioned. And I am also the very proud principal of Great Falls Elementary School in Chester County, South Carolina.
Awesome. Great to have you back. Great to have you back.
If you guys want to know about literacy, helping out kids reading, that's their podcast. The focus and supporting. You don't have to be alone, right, ladies? In the leadership position. You don't have to be alone. And another great podcaster from the Lone Star State of Texas, someone that always talks about connections before content. We have in the house, Mr. Kevin Curtis. Welcome to the Red Zone.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the invite. I'm super excited to join you in this conversation. So I'm here right outside Austin, Texas also. I am the founder of National Educators for Restorative Practices. I've been a school administrator, a high school coach, a teacher, a principal. I was on the first campus in the state of Texas to pilot restorative practices at Ed White Middle School in 2012. I co-published the book, Restorative Discipline Practices, the Implementation of a Journey of Educators in the State of Texas. My next book is coming out in November called Valued, Seen, and Heard, Strengthening Student Connections and Improving Student Behavior. And I'm the host of the Relationship-Centered Learning Podcast, man. And I'm just excited to share and learn from everybody tonight.
Hey, Kevin, how did you go from the car to where you are right now? That's like Superman. I saw you driving. Next thing I knew, you were back right where you needed to be.
This is it, brother. It's all about timing, right?
That's good stuff, man. Doesn't matter. You're here now, and you're right where you need to be. All right, Josh, take us away, brother.
You know, one of the things, if you don't listen to Kevin's podcast, I love the line. Kevin, I have not forgotten. I say this at faculty meetings always. If you can't connect with us, we will not content with you. I love that line. It was a young lady who said that at one of his seminars. So it's crucial because he brings to, in our podcast, his podcast, he brings the student's voice to life. And he finds that as a crucial aspect of ensuring that our field gets stronger by hearing the voice of our students. But you know what? I listened to his podcast. Great job. But let's talk about 21-22. Thank God. The nails in the coffin. Fuchila, like we say in Spanish, guacala, get out of here, 21-22. How was your year, Brad, over there in the north?
Remarkable, Josh. And I keep having to remind myself and the significant adults in kids' lives that it's not why is this happening to us? It's what is this teaching us? And constantly helping to reshift our adults and our kids' focus to the learning opportunities, even through fear, trauma, displacement, schools opening and closing, and just trying to reckon with, making sure that we're serving the kids that are in front of us. Every single child that comes to our school every single day has something to offer, great gifts and great opportunities. And so, yeah, I'm excited to say that we've learned a tremendous amount, but it hasn't been without its cost, Josh. And I want to send a special greeting out to all educators tonight for digging in with purpose and with love and with sincerity to do what is required to serve our kids. Josh, thanks.
Tammy, talk to us.
This has been an absolutely phenomenal year for me. And as Brad said, it started with some unique experiences that we just had to honor as the opportunity to serve students in times like these, because we haven't experienced such a time as this before. But through it all, I feel like I've experienced an abundance of grace. And because of that, it's been very easy to do what needed to be done to meet the needs of staff, students, parents, even our community. It just seems like this was the year that some things congealed for us in the middle of the chaos that was surrounding us. So we started the year very strong and we finished the year very strong. So I'm looking forward to opening up with the same energy and the same synergy and the same level of expectation starting in the 22-23 school year.
Sheka from Central Office, talk to us.
Well, this year was a learning year for me. I transitioned out of the building, and I had to tell all my principal colleagues, you all know how we used to call it the ivory tower. Let's not call it that anymore since I work there. But
but we still call it that. Just so we know.
Just learning to transition to the new role and supporting my colleagues, supporting the schools, the students. I just wanted to feel like, nothing is above anything. I went and helped test students because there were teachers out due to, some people being sick. So any way that I could support, fill in, help, that's what I wanted people to know that I'm here to do. Support and help, because that's what people need.
Kevin, I know that you've been out on the road talking to students, to teachers, to everybody. Talk to us. How was your 21-22?
21 and 22, I felt invigorated for the fact that I have been trying to preach and teach about putting relationships at the center of learning for many, many years. And at time, it seems like it felt on deaf ears. And then all of a sudden, coming back from the pandemic, one of the situations where I think we were already pushed apart from our students prior to this. And then I think what the distance actually did is it revealed those lack of connections, right? So what my 21-22 was an experience where people were starting to truly recognize the strength of relationships and connections. And I felt like for the first time, after a year where we plummeted and, we barely survived just on CPR to get back up and running, I felt like this was a year where it was validating, but it was also affirming and confirming. But it also felt us where we started recognizing what campuses and districts needed. And so that put us to work. It's been a whole year of revamping our content, revamping our tools. For me, taking restorative practices in a different direction with relationship-centered learning, because if you're not really familiar, the hardest part about being in the restorative practices business and owning National Educators for Restorative Practice, not everybody's fond of that concept. And it can be very kumbaya circle and anti-exclusionary. And I would just tell you, I've worked really hard to break away from that stigma, and I've built, a very proactive relationship toolbox based on where teachers needed. I heard more than anything else, Josh, teachers necessarily don't know how to connect with kids. And what came out of this last year is I think that about 20% of our staff, if we're gifted, naturally know how to do this. But there's about 50 to 60 to 70% of our staff, they just don't know how. And they were able to get by prior to this. But what happened with those expanded distances, it exposed us where we were really lacking. So I think what was exciting about 21 and 22 was honing in on those tools and really being in a lane where really nobody else was at, is teaching teachers how to connect with students, and then helping administrators come up with alternatives to suspensions and all the things that are falling under restorative practices. And so for us, it was a really growth year for us because we felt like we could really start to meet the needs of the schools and the campuses and the districts. And as I said, every person wants to feel valued, seen, and heard. And at the end, this was a very great year to put those to practice.
I'm glad you said that, Kevin, because I'm thinking about my own staff and my own kids and the needs. And not only did our teachers feel a sense of relief, I think today that the year was over, but I think they gave themselves permission to take a deep breath and step back and relax. And we talked about it collectively as a faculty today. And as I was recognizing some outgoing retirees and saying some words about them, and recognizing some people who are moving on to other positions, I couldn't help but just think about being in leadership for the last 21 years, how important it was to be that strong compass for everybody, for everything that they needed throughout this year. And you're talking about restorative practices again, and you're spot on when you say that, because, the last thing any school wants to do is be that school that's suspending everybody, or everything's getting recorded through the state that, the teachers can't connect with kids. That is the number one thing. I mean, I'll say number one. I've got three main goals in my school improvement plan next year. And one of them is MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support. But behaviorally speaking, what are we going to do differently to keep those kids engaged? And that's going back to even looking at the district accommodation plans. You know what? We've been out of this. COVID knocked us back on our heels. There are so many accommodations that you can make so students can access their learning that the teachers just forget because we get caught up. So I got to do a better job as an administrator of getting that out in front of them, helping them understand, because what it does is leads to greater student engagement, better learning, and better school climate. That's the biggest thing we're going right here. So thank you for sharing that out, all you guys. So as we go into the summer here, what are you looking to do? What is going to be your big thing to do to rejuvenate yourselves in regards to being prepared for this 2022-23 school opening? And let's go in reverse role here. Kevin, let's start back with you.
Well, I'm in a very unique position because my job is to support schools, right? So I'm not actually in a school building. So our format, like just this next Tuesday, we're in Austin. We have a certified specialist in restorative practices. We have 280 people who sold out, and we have 13 states. We have 14 people coming from Alaska. We are destined to really fill those needs from those educators. And beyond that, Dean, it's really coming down to like aligning, like you said, I have a lot of school leaders, and what we're doing is we're making sure that we listen to school leaders, finding what their top three are, right? Getting those campus improvement plans and making sure that we align with them, because at the end of the day, I never jumped out of education in 2015 to do this, to create a business. I wanted to make a difference. So for me, It's really about finding those school districts that truly want to align with us and want to really bring us in. And I think what I've learned through the years, Dean, is I'm going into this summer going, what's your plan? Not just what are you going to do with us? What is your plan? What are you going to do to sustain those relationships? What are you going to do to maintain this? Because I think you just mentioned it is if we bring these initiatives to campuses and districts and teachers, and I'm speaking specifically for them, if they just hear that this is one more thing or an attempt that you're going to try to do to close a gap or, allow student achievement to go, if they just hear this as your attempt versus an investment, and what I always say for these, for all of these leaders on here, the one thing I've learned about working in over 200 school districts across the United States, Dean, is what you just talked about. If I have a building principal that has 2 feet in, right? 2 feet in, not 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and not an assistant principal, not a teacher leader. I'm talking the building principal. When the building principal has 2 feet in and they can stand in front of their staff, and I tell them, look, when I get done, you have to be able to articulate your why. When I get done, you got to be able to say, this is why I brought these people in. This is why we're doing it. And because I believe in this, and I'm going to follow that, and I'm going to lead that, right? And so I tell campus leaders, when you go into classrooms moving forward, particularly, don't put teachers on their heels. If you go in to evaluate and they're building relationships, you better go from evaluation to participation. You better put your clipboard down, you better put your laptop down, and you better get in there and roll your sleeves up and build relationships with those kids and that staff, because that's the first turning point that your staff will see that you have 2 feet in.
Agreed, 100%. And they got to be sustainable as well. That's the other thing about this. And I love the point that you made, because, I've been in business long enough where we've had improvement plans that had 15 things on there. You cannot be good at 15 things. Give me 2 to 3 things to dig in and really build a core around. And once you do that, guess what happens? You begin to gain momentum. And that's a really big thing, especially with 7 schools in our district. Okay. You can't have oars going in like this. You got oars all over the place. Guess what? You got inequitable practices. You got kids not having the same opportunities, and things go awry very quickly. Tammy, kick it over to you.
I'd like to just echo some of that thought process that Kevin mentioned, because I think this is a great time. Like for me, the summer is a time just to reflect and to have that peace, and nobody really ensuing to need me for something, because that just is the reality of being in that principal seat. You're always needed in some capacity. And the summer kind of gives you just a few weeks of nobody really pulling and tugging, and you having time with yourself just to reflect on what happened this particular school year and those things that you want to maintain into the next school year, but also those changes that you want to see that will improve what's happening at your school, or just to grow you and extend yourself, your staff, your students, and your families. The other thing that I think is really powerful for me in the summer, I'm one of those principals who really feels best when I am close to campus, when kids and staff are there. So I don't do a lot of traveling during the school year. And so that leads me to being on campus and not in professional development, so that I am engaged as the learner. But this summer I have some really key PDs that I'm looking forward to. We had restorative practices, believe it or not, this week, Kevin. So it's very interesting to hear you talk about it, because I think that whole concept is something that, as you said, could be hard to swallow, but is very needed, especially during these times. So we started the week with that. And then I had PD on yesterday, where we were invited to the State Department to present our school improvement story, which went over very, very well. So the next set of PDs are professional development opportunities where I feel I can sit down and I can learn and I can grow and I can be rejuvenated. And so that renewal will take me into the next school year. Principal Kafele is going to be in our area, so we're going to get to see him. We are actually going to a conference in San Antonio that Sheka's going to be our AVID conference. So we'll be out there for a minute. And again, just looking forward to those things that will allow me to be a better me for the staff and students for next year.
And guys, Tammy's being very modest. Her presentation was about how her school has gone from unsatisfactory to all the way up to good in such a short period of time, and probably will be coming out of improvement status.
Sheka's cheerleader with the presentation was really for us to share our improvement journey. And she's right. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, because yesterday it was validation. And I heard Kevin say something before that makes it very comforting when you see that others are having some of the similar struggles that you have had to endure through that process, and with faith and with hard work and with determination and commitment to excellence, you're able to overcome some of those things. So our school has experienced tremendous growth, and we look forward to that continuing, because as Sheka said, we did it moved very quickly because we have the right people in the right places, and we've turned our children on to understanding, like, you can do this, guys. This is what you're here to do. School is for you. So they've learned how to account for their learning, and that's what really truly is making the difference down there.
You also have a strategy, a roadmap, and you have leadership. Okay, you put all those three things together, and guess what happens? Things start to move. So congratulations, Tammy. Great stuff. Great story right there. Brad, how about you?
I've got a great opportunity, Dean, in July to travel to Illinois for a Teach Better Team retreat, an opportunity for me to get to know the team personally, and to meet in person with people, professionals, and friends that have really meant so much to me. And just digging deeper in those relationships is really the foundation of all of the great work that we do. Intentional time by the lake. We've got a family spot by Lake Huron where sunshine and water and kayaking and lots of time to read. I love to read over the summer. It restores my energy, and it also gives me an opportunity to think about who I can reach out to have conversations with the podcast, and find it's a great opportunity for me to get into a cycle of professional learning where I do some reading. I'm able to reach out directly to an author or authors. We have a conversation. I dig deeper, they dig deeper, and I love to elevate and lift voices of educators that are doing great things in their space with and for kids. I've also got a vision for the next school year to be intentional about using our staff meeting time as community building time, a time for us as educators to reinvest in ourselves. So, I mean, my passion is connecting with kids. I'll tell you, my commitment is loving and supporting each significant adult in kids' lives. And so I want to reinvest that time by taking time that may be for administrative announcements, or I kind of want to flip things. So I want to be sharing information like that ahead of time and leading really community circles. I'm striving for a certification as a Happy Teacher Revolution facilitator over the summer. And so my intention is to build community at Alpine Public School through that process, monthly meetings where teachers have an opportunity to live, celebrate, enjoy each other, and become happier on the job. So we've got a great summer ahead. And I always say summer is such a gift of time as an educator. So many educators are using that gift of time to reconnect with the people, the places, and the things that bring them joy, because gosh, we deserve it. And when we are intentional about seeking joy in our lives, then we can also share that joy with others too.
That's awesome, Brad. May I just say this? We got a bag of professional books yesterday, so I can send you titles of some things that you might want to pick up to read. These are the books that they gave the leadership on yesterday that are cutting edge and are the key to success in schools.
Tammy, I'm all over that. Send me as many titles as you can, and I'd be happy to send back to any of you the things that are resonating with me too.
Awesome.
That's why we do what we do right here, guys. You're seeing it firsthand unfold. Great stuff. Thank you so much. Make sure you get some Brad time in there too, okay? That's very much needed because I tell people all the time, without that, you can't be the best Brad ever. So make sure you get that. Sheka, you're up.
Same thing. Most of the conferences that Tammy will be attending, I'll be at too. The only one that's different is one that I'll be leaving out on Sunday to go to Myrtle Beach for it's our school administrators conference here in South Carolina, and also the PLC conference. I don't know if she mentioned that one. So just making sure we are helping our leaders fully institute the PLC model along with the MTSS system, and not making it one more thing to do, but kind of creating that alignment.
So now that we've got the PD ready and the relaxation, I'll be going to Florida. But you know what? To me, we all need to make sure that we're well prepared and rested as leaders, people that sit in our chairs, because everyone will always be looking at us. I always see that little clip art, and I remember that of the big lion, and there's a little baby lion next to him. He says there was times I wanted to quit, but then I knew who was watching me, and that's everybody within our community. That's everyone in our community, and all of us have that. And I think I mentioned it 2 weeks ago. You know what? If you're out there in the learning community, you got to check up on your assistant principals and your principals also. I understand that we have a very hard job, and we chose that job. Principal Cafele says we chose leadership, but you know what? We're also human beings, and we also have our families. And you know what? Sometimes we do carry a big burden. So you know what? Out there, now that you're rested, a quick email to your administrator and say, hey, thank you for the support this year, because you know what? That encourages us also, because we're all human beings first, and parents also. So it's very important. Go ahead, Sheka.
Well, I was just going to say, when Kevin was talking about the connections with students and restorative practices, one reflection I had from our recent training, and I mentioned it to our director over our department, we really need to come up with some respect contracts and things that we're doing with our leaders. How do our leaders want to be spoken to, and all of the things that they're going to do, teachers are going to do with their students. We need to do that with our leaders too, and they need to do it with their staffs. And that just creates that more of a connection, but also modeling it as well.
And so now let's get into this part of the smash. So we have different podcasts here, and you know what? I've really grown as an individual, as a professional, listening to all of you. Every single last one of you. I've had the honor of working in conjunction with Create and Educate, and just listening to Brad and Kevin nonstop. It's made me a better professional sitting in my chair. So what is your two-part question? What do you feel you bring to the table as someone with your podcast? And how do you feel, number two, how do you feel we could expand this? This is free professional development. People would pay hundreds of dollars to bring in somebody like you all to your campus with manuals and everything like that, right? How can we expand this out there when there's such a hesitation still on people on social media taking their time to listen to stuff like this? So what do you feel that you've brought to the table that people will give you reflection on, and how can we expand our sphere of influence? Go ahead, Brad.
One thing I think that I bring to the table, Josh, is sincerity, like a sincere approach to really wanting to amplify the great work of educators like all of us. Anyone that listens to the Good News, Brad News podcast, I hope that they leave feeling, reassured and inspired. Like, as much as I'm bringing wonderful stories of great success and great service to kids forward, I want listeners to really be reassured and hear that they too are doing this important and much needed work. I also like to try to weave in some of the things that I'm reading and some of the thought leaders that are influencing me. So as I mentioned earlier, Josh, it's a great opportunity for me to reflect and incorporate ongoing professional learning for myself, and then to share that excitement out to listeners. I am really eager to continue to grow, and I'm trying to give myself permission, both as a podcaster and a blogger and just a contributor in many spaces, to grow at a pace that makes sense to me, so that I can continue, as Dean and as you said, to make sure that there is some Brad time, because all of us are in demanding, time-consuming, energy-consuming roles. We love it, and we're in the right place. We're in the right place, in the right space, doing the right thing. So I'm trying to be patient as I grow my listenership. I'm trying to be patient as I grow as a creator. But man, just the creative growth and the professional learning that I've been able to provide for myself, and just the connections, Josh, with people locally, and connections with people really all over the world that have listened to the podcast. It's incredibly gratifying. My goal is to influence one person at a time through what I create, and it's a win-win. I know that there's value added to those that might listen, and there's certainly value added to me in how I approach life and leadership and education.
Kevin.
I think when you talk about the smash, I mean, for me, it literally is like the next title of the book. When I started the podcast, it was done because out of a necessity, because I am driven to connections, right? And what I learned though, like, if you don't know anything about my backstory and you haven't heard anything, I was in the district at Northeast in San Antonio. I was one of the assistant principals that led the district with 1,149 types of suspension. We were a suspension machine, right? Our goal was to get rid of kids and get rid of the kids that don't want to be there so the rest of the kids can learn, right? So I tried to explain to people, when Jim Walsh asked me one time, like, how did you flip? And I said, Jim, you can't flip. This is a slow progression where you start to see kids different. You start to hear their stories. So the fact that we were mandated to implement something different, Josh, and we chose restorative practices, and it's Texas TEA came to visit us, Dr. Lang, everybody came to visit us, and they were like, all right, you guys are really doing something different than anyone else. And then when TEA hired me and said, we want you to train at all 20 service centers for the next 2 years, the only way I could do that was to leave education, right? But as you pointed out, Brad, I think I left with a mission saying, look, I'm one person. But these stories, these truths, these voices, right? I literally told myself when the podcast started, it was for me to find one person, to find one classroom, to take one tool back to one classroom to make a difference for one kid. And like you said, Brett, it's a win-win. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know who listens. I don't look at the data. I don't look at the sport. I'm 77 episodes, and I had to pause until we get so. But what I tried to do is bring an authentic, genuine voice. And like you said, Josh, we have our conference every year. We had 100 students at our conference. So it wasn't even a training. It was a 2-day conference. We've averaged 750 people to our conference. And we've had, in fact, our next conference in November, Principal Cafali will be there, Michael Jr. We have 6 keynote speakers. And so, but the point about this is what I felt like on the podcast to do was I just wanted to find a genuine platform where I could let students be heard, principals, superintendents, anybody that could talk to me in the education space about how they value the importance of relationships and what did they do to bring it to the forefront. Because I think there are hundreds of ways to be able to do this, right? But what I think I learned and took away from it is that what educators want is something simple, right? So listen, I participated in thousands of circles and trainings in circles, but what I would tell you is circles are like the elephant of restorative practices. I'm one of the only organizations that don't even train circles right out the get-go. I think circles are a problem. My opinion, and I stand out in this, I will tell you, classroom teachers there's not enough training to get classroom teachers prepared for circles. They got to crawl before they walk, and they got to walk before they run. And I have too many schools that are suffering from what I call circle syndrome. And I am not anti-circle. I am slow to circle. I scaffold to circle. And so when I did the podcast, it was about listening, valuing, hearing people, and then going back and then building something. And then you ask, Josh, how do we make this going forward? For me, it's about finding something that we can all use, right? For me, I needed to create 6 tools that teachers could use that were not curriculum driven and that were not circle driven. Because to me, I understand there was a lot of initiatives coming out of this. SEL is more profound than ever. Trauma, diversity, culture, all of these things. But at the end of the day, every one of them come in a lesson plan. They all come in a lesson-based content and curriculum. And to me, lesson-based curriculums blend relationships. They don't build relationships. So what I learned from this podcast is learn how to build your school on a rock of relationships, not the sands of initiatives. And so how do we do that moving forward, Josh? I think we need to, one, invite people to a more common place. I think we're all spread out. I think there is not a great center resource for staff development. I mean, think about it. I get people that call me random, I get people to hire me and blah, blah, blah. But I wish there was one hub where you could find podcasts, professional development, where you could find all of us. And it, again, Josh, is not about money. It's more about how do we spread. Teachers, we don't do things for money. We do things to make a difference, right? So at the end of the day, why would we have tons of resources, minds, energies out there? The problem is it's so spread out on so many different platforms. And how many teachers in your building do things within their four walls and nobody else even knows it, right? We teach in silos. That's what we're conditioned to. We have got to break the walls of the four classrooms down. We've got to break out of just these little cliques and little things and different things. And we've got to create a teacher-centered, right, resources where we all start putting everything we can together, because without each other, there's no way that we're going to be able to sustain this.
The dynamic duo. Create and educate. Talk to us.
You're muted, Sheka.
I'm sorry. I said, Tammy, did you want to start off with the collaborative and I'll talk about the Real Academy?
Sure. Before I even say anything, I want to just say, guys, kudos to you guys for the work that you're doing. I think it's absolutely phenomenal and it is trend setting. I thank you, Josh, and Dean for providing this space for us to all come together. And it is just so appropriate for us to follow Kevin's remarks, because he was trying to bring people together to center relationships. And we, as problem solvers that just naturally like to solve problems, were trying to center people around, instead of just harping on and talking about what's wrong and always seeing the wrong in what was happening in education. We decided we were going to create a platform that would allow administrators, leaders, teachers, students, parents to all come together in a common place to collaborate and find solutions to these issues that were plaguing us. And because we birthed this experience during the pandemic, it, of course, was the time when we were having so many issues. We had more problems than we could solve, but it was great to have the space and the opportunity to put people together and to let folks know that we're here to solve problems, not to create them. And we're definitely not wanting to just talk about what's wrong, but we want to bring solutions to those things that are creating issues for everybody in education today.
And the Real Academy basically was based off our book. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top. And it's based on our story. Is we were school leaders that were in school improvement. We didn't have a lot of support from our district or basically from people that were in our area. We actually got the support from a podcast, listening to Principal Hurt. We heard him talking about data, and we reached out to him, and he gave us some information and training on data. A lot of support, a lot of affirmation about you're on the right track, because as a new leader, and we were first year principals that found ourselves in school improvement. So sometimes you're needing like that reassurance, that roadmap. So that is a lot about what our book is about, our journey. We were able to improve our schools out of improvement status. Mine went up 2 report card grade levels in 1 year. Tammy's went up 3 report card grade levels in 1 year. And we used our framework that we use in the book to try to give that roadmap to other leaders, because there's so many legs to leadership and what you're doing, especially when you're in school improvement. You have to figure out how to align all those things, because if not, it's overwhelming to the staff, to your students, to everyone. So our acronym REAL stands for respect, excellence, accountability, literacy and leadership, and it shows you or shows a leader how to use that framework to align what you're doing for success in school improvement or getting out of that status. And really, it helps any leader because it goes into your school improvement plan, your communication plans, all of those things being aligned to help you be successful. So our Real Academy on Saturdays is just what we received, paying it forward. People need help. Sometimes they don't get that support just like we didn't. So we want to be that support for people who may not necessarily be getting it.
You know, the one thing I'm hearing from all you guys, and I love this because Chris and I started Unlock the Middle two and a half years ago, whatever it was. We have 375 episodes right now. But the main reason we did it was to empower people, to elicit voice, to be able to amplify people like Brad, you were saying earlier, but more importantly, to remove barriers. You know, we ask teachers to remove barriers in a classroom. If we can remove the barriers for people like in administration to be able to just come on and just talk and be able to really articulate out their visions on things, and bring it together, it does create a positive ripple. There's no doubt about this. I mean, I don't get paid to do this. I don't know if you guys are getting paid to come on this show today. You're probably not. You're here because you want to be part of something bigger than yourselves. And you know, in leadership, and I look back to my early days in leadership, I was a high school basketball coach for 12 years. I get it. That's probably the toughest job there is in public education because half the people hate you. But if you're good at what you do and you're transparent and your plan is clear, guess what? That noise goes away. And you can take that to the classroom. You can take that to the leadership. You can take that to the principal's chair. I mean, it's not hard. We get in our own way sometimes, and unfortunately, that becomes problematic for growth for some people. And these platforms, to me, just clear everything up because we're all in this together. It's a beautiful thing about this whole process. That's all I have.
Dean, one thing that really resonates with me about what you said is that sense of clarity. And through the creative process, I've been able to get more and more clear on what I believe, why I do the things I do. Also, you know, getting clear on being accountable. So, I mean, I see the podcast as a source of positive accountability. I put where I stand, what I feel, what I believe out there for listeners. I seek feedback. I seek opportunities for growth. But it really has helped me clarify, Dean, as a school leader, but just as a human being, sort of the, you know, my particular take on things and how I want to rally others to build a better world. So that clarity is key. And you know, we know that people grow people and leaders grow leaders. And so, you know, spaces like this, and my heart just leapt when I heard Sheka and Tammy just cheering each other on for their school growth and their professional growth, right? We need to be in each other's corner, and these networks, whether through podcasts or blogs or telephone calls or whoever it is. I mean, the professional networks are the heart of everything good that we're going to do. So grateful to be with you tonight. And thanks for that note about clarity. That really resonated with me.
Yeah, you absolutely got it. And, you know, I go back to transparency. You know, the districts that I see that suffer the most, they're not transparent. Their consumers don't know what's going on. And it's not hard to create that visionary plan and share that out. I mean, it just takes a little bit of ingenuity and planning time. And once you do that, guess what? The buy-in will be created on the other side because there are no questions being asked. You know, I love that. And I love those conversations with community members. I want to be able to tell you everything that's happening within my school every second. Go ahead, Kevin. I see it coming.
Yeah. So when I heard Dean, or when I heard Brad just say something, you know, one of the things that I learned pretty much in this last year or two, particularly with everything going on, is it's kind of words of wisdom. And you guys just touched on the word clarity. And one of the things that I think when I was a campus principal, because Dean, I was also a high school coach in football and baseball for 10 years in Texas. And so taught science but one of the things that I learned that I look back on my career as an administrator and a principal, I look back and one of the things I was taught this last year by a great leader was a simple phrase. And it goes simply like this. Whatever you're leading, whatever initiative, whatever campus, whatever district, you know, Sheka in that ivory tower up there, wherever you're at, right? Just here's the deal. I gotta throw a little shade. But here's the fun. Whatever you're leading, check this out. This was very powerful. Whatever you're leading, make sure, Dean, it's so clear that it cannot be misunderstood. Now, I'm going to say that again because it's simple, but it kind of goes right by you. Because when it hit me like a 2x4. Whatever you're leading, make sure it's so clear it can't be misunderstood. And the reason I say that, Dean and Brad, you mentioned it, clarity, it changed everything for perspective, right? So when we build our content or when we talk with the school, Brad, there's no there's no assumptions, there's no nothing, right? And at this point, if we're building a piece of content, Dean, and somebody brings it back to me, and the first thing I say is so is it clear, so clear that if Tammy and Sheka pick this up and they're going to read it, they're going to know exactly what we're saying, what we're doing. And they're like, well, and I'm like, then it's not clear enough. Go back. So your stakeholders, your community, and then when I think the campus leaders, as you said, yes, you're public, but your teachers. I mean, the reason I'm passionate about this, guys, I get brought in all the time to talk to staff about the importance of relationships. And I get a lot of voluntold, crossed-armed people sitting in uncomfortable cafeteria tables and all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you, it's amazing, because the other advice I will give you is I've learned the hardest way. When you get into leadership, I think we're convinced that we need to go in and convince and convert and change people and then condemn them if they're not doing it. And I will tell you, when I first left and I started working for Texas Education Agency and traveling across these centers, there wasn't a lot of clarity, Dean. So the whole state was like, so what are we doing with restorative practices? I'm like, well, we're kind of doing this and we're calling it restorative discipline. And so there was no clarity. But when I got in front of people, I thought it was my job to convert them, convince them, change them, or condemn them. And so what was crazy, believe it or not, I was actually in a second master's in Christian ministry. I thought I was going to be a youth pastor. And so believe it or not, that ministry mindset, when I got in front of adults, because I had worked with kids my whole life, now all of a sudden I'm trying to train adults. I'll be honest with you, and adults don't shake their head at, they're harder to teach than kids. And they're all like, yes, we are, right? So what's crazy is I completely changed my platform. I went in and I literally have a slide. It said, I'm not here at the beginning. I'm not here to convert. I'm not here to convince. I'm not here to change you. And I'm certainly not going to condemn you. And they're all like, well, then what the hell are you here for, right? And I'm like, look, I'm here for one reason. I'm here to convict you. I'm going to speak to your heart. But I'm going to deliver information with clarity. And I'm going to deliver it from my head, my heart, and my hands. I'm going to give you information. I'm going to squeeze your heart about that information and give you some testimonies and things and see if you got any blood pumping in there. And then I'm going to give you a tool. So it's head, heart, hands, right? When you put head, heart, hands, and then you put clarity, and then you just leave it to conviction, as you said, Brad, I walk every day. I used to walk in so nervous. Now I walk in every day. I'm like, there's no pressure on me. I don't have to convert, change. I don't get paid by conversion. At the end of the day, I want one teacher to feel moved. I want one teacher to find one tool to take back to one classroom for one kid, right? And when you add clarity to those C's, all of a sudden, you got clarity, you got conviction, no condemnation. You're not trying to convert. You're not trying to change people. And it's amazing they let go of all those pressure points that you're trying to work out of them when they just realize you're genuine and authentic. But I will tell you, remember, make sure it's so clear it can't be misunderstood. If you will lead from that position, you will help yourself so much in the seats you're in.
I want to let you know, I know we're getting close to the end here, but for 3 months I was teaching U.S. history, and I heard one of his podcasts. And Kevin, when he talks to you, he talks to you from his heart. Let me tell you, did you hear it right now? Out there in Twitter world, did you feel that like I felt it? And SEL is not another thing. It should be the thing, part of your lesson. I took that away from, I think it was your third podcast. And while I was teaching, I made sure that the very start of my class was a way for them to engage with each other and have those conversations. I bought little frisbees where they threw it at each other talking, little Nerf balls where they were passing at each other to take away I'm not going to participate. You're going to participate one way or the other. But you know what, Kevin, if it wasn't for that, you got that one guy right here in front of you. Because you know what, you spoke to it, and I want to thank you for that, because you know what, that made the lesson for the rest of the period go bell to bell. Does that make sense? Because that allowed them to be engaged by throwing a frisbee and talking about who's the nicest guy, Darth Vader or Thanos, something like that. What is stronger, a rhinoceros or a gorilla? Silly nonsense like that they could have an actual conversation without getting into an argument. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you for educating me and teaching me, Kevin, because without you having that podcast, I would not have implemented that. And I saw our brand new teachers come and see me do that. So that's the magic of what this is. That's the purpose of us smashing podcasts out there in Twitter world and YouTube and Facebook. We need to learn from each other and become better versions of ourselves. Because what do we tell our kids? You need to become a better version of yourself. But we also, as adults, we need to make sure that we role model those expectations and always keep on sharpening our tool set. I told our faculty members as we were leaving, would you go to a dentist that stopped learning 15 years ago? Would you go to a doctor that stopped going to PD 15 years ago and what they graduated with, that's what they were? No, as educators, we're the same thing because our clients keep on changing, especially after these last 2 years. So I just think that this smash that we're doing today is such an awesome thing. And you know what, Dean? You know what?
Scored another touchdown.
Another touchdown today. Awesome. Thank
We
you
sure did.
for Kevin joining us, zooming in from his car there to his room. Thank you from South Carolina. I hope the weather gets better up there. And Lake Huron, Brad, enjoy that Lake Huron with your family, beautiful heart that you have with all educators out there. And join us this coming Sunday for Unlock the Middle with our guest. I want to say his name correctly, John Coripo. Hope I didn't butcher that name. And he presents different learning strategies for our team members that are preparing for the 22-23 year. Thank you, everybody. What do you think about that, Dean?
I'll tell you what, Josh, I couldn't have said it any better. Guys, thank you so much. I'm leaving a little better tonight just because you were here. And again, that positive ripple will continue to go forward and pay itself forward. So thank you so much, guys. I hope you guys have a great summer. And you know what? You know we're going to be in touch with you guys because you know what? We're going to continue to do this dance until the last day we do this. And that could be a long time from now. So again, you guys have a great week. Everybody stay on the call. Again, keep making a difference because kids deserve the best us possible. Have a great week, everybody.